WordPress as a core technology is still over 60%.
Okay.
That's what I can say. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a whole lot of other things. But what I'm saying is that there's almost always in over 80% of the time, there's almost always a WordPress backbone
Mhm.
that is later on connected to Salesforce, to HubSpot, to
Oh
NetSuite.
yes.
We
Oh yeah.
have, BigQuery layers and, Cloudflare workers and then key value storages and AWS. So it's still like the one of the core systems of our businesses that we work with is still WordPress, but it's also one of the 15 or 20 different systems that we integrate. And we manage 5 or 6 other systems alongside for our clients.
From selling PCs as a kid to architecting WordPress solutions for enterprises generating billions in traffic, that's the trajectory of today's guest. Welcome to WP Legends. I'm Gautam, co-founder of Seahawk Media. Joining me today is Mario Peshev, CEO of Devrix, founder of Growth Shuttle, author of MBA Disrupted, and a global advisor and angel investor to over 18 tech startups. Mario began writing code in the late 1990s and transitioned to WordPress around 2006 to 2008, eventually founding Devrix, a distributed WordPress consulting specializing in enterprise clients, publishers, high-skill systems, generating over a billion page views and hundreds and millions of GMV annually. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, advisor, author, and frequent speaker, driving WordPress adoption in regulated sectors, B2B SaaS, enterprise media workflows. He's also an active contributor to WordPress courses WP 3.7, a co-organizer of WordCamp Europe, and regularly publishes insightful analysis on digital trends, marketing strategy, and startup scaling at mariopeshev.com and Growth Shuttle. Today, we'll explore how Mario turned open source into global enterprise impact, how content automation and AI intersect with WordPress at scale, and what it takes to build sustainable growth in B2B digital world. Mario, welcome to WP Legends. Let's rewind to the beginning.
Oh man, thanks for having me. That's such an incredible intro. I don't really know what else to add, but like how far back do you want me to go?
I think the beginning of Devrix and WordPress, when you got into WordPress, I think that would be a good start.
All right, so Devrix was started just 15 years ago. We celebrate our 15th birthday in June. And back in 2010, kind of the way we started essentially was, I'm probably going to take it a few years back. So back in 2005 or so, I was working in a media company in Bulgaria,
Mm.
and they were building different kind of vertical system. They had like a photo gallery site back when Gallery 2 was a thing. They had at some point they launched a dating website. They had an investor media website. There was a bunch of different kind of things that they had. One of the platforms that they built was blog.bg, which is kind of a blogging platform, kind of a self-hosted
Mhm.
live journal type of thing. So I wasn't. I spoke with the kind of founder, the ideator there in the team, and was helping out with due diligence and kind of uncovering different platforms. That's kind of how I discovered WordPress at the time. I also tried again LiveJournal, and I'm not sure if Blogger was back at the time, but like some of the other systems out there, signed up for an accounts, tested them out.
Mhm.
Really, really
Mhm.
enjoyed what WordPress has turned to. I also had some, development experience at the time, some Java, later on PHP as well. So this was something that kind of like I was able to understand. So during this time, around 2006 or so, I got familiar with WordPress and then different freelancing projects and kind of other work-related activities in 2007, 2008. We started to roll out WordPress heavily, right? Then around the recession, I decided to quit my full-time job because it was 3 hours of commute and like a small team. My clients were distributed anyways. So it wasn't, I decided to kind of take the opportunity to say, look, it's a recession. It's the worst time in history to ever do a transition like that. So I'm going to go dive in. I'm either going to fail miserably and get the job once again, or, if it works out over the next year or two, then things are only going to start getting better.
Mhm.
So this is kind of how I started rolling out by myself. WordPress was one of the platforms that I was building systems with, along with a bunch of other things. Again, as a developer, I was also pretty comfortable with Java. So we had Java CMSs. I was doing some Python. We had a Django system for UNICEF and some other things. 2010 eventually, kind of positioned my efforts toward Devrix and training. And the first year and a half, again, we were still building a bunch of different things. I became a kind of fractional co-founder of a theme framework on WordPress. And this is when, over the course of 4 to 6 months, we bent all the rules that WordPress ever had. Like anything that they thought that it was unimaginable with WordPress, it was possible. We found the hooks, the event listeners, started committing some patches here and there. And after this kind of 4 to 6 months launching this product, this is kind of my first side startup next to kind of Devrix. It was a huge success. Company is still running. I did an exit of kind of my half. But I said, okay, that's it. We're focusing on WordPress as a core engineering platform. We branded Devrix as bridging WordPress and the enterprise, meaning our enterprise experience working with telecoms and banks, moving to WordPress, where kind of most of the people are designers, bloggers, and kind of do-it-yourself site builders, and kind of connecting these two pieces. We started immediately working with higher up, small, mid-sized enterprises, larger businesses, banks, telecoms, automotive manufacturers, just integrating, incorporating WordPress into their professional digital ecosystem.
That's amazing. So Devrix now handles platforms generating like a lot of page views, like billions of page views as per your site, and significant e-commerce volume. So how do you structure projects and teams to support this scale?
Well, it's definitely been a pretty long-term transition, right? Again, we've been in business for 15 years. What I can say is that over time, we've been through different stages and different kind of phases of the business. So first, before that 15 years, I had my own pivot for another couple of years working myself. And I was able to kind of test the market, talk to enough customers, and kind of do the so-called ICP interviews, as we call them in the enterprise, right?
Yes.
Analyzing our ideal customer profiles, figuring out their pain points, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, kind of how to kind of bridge the gap in between. I was also a trainer back at the time, so kind of a good chunk of my expertise is also in training and consulting, which is tied to my other businesses.
That's my next question with respect to about
Well, I'll dive into that in a bit, so we can jump into that a little after. But kind of in parallel with my training and consulting, we kind of pivoted and shifted the direction in different divisions. So first, it was essentially building everything so that we can test the market and see what works and what doesn't. Then moving to WordPress after that theme framework, really positioning WordPress in enterprise. 2013, we started building SaaS applications on top of WordPress. We were one of the first 5 companies actually building SaaS on top of WordPress. Our WordPress SaaS page ranked in like top 3 in Google for probably 7 years. Literally, we were the kind of one of the go-to resources on that with blogs and stuff. Then 2015, we coined WordPress retainers as the only business model that made sense to us. Then I worked with over 200 agencies, teaching them how to apply and adapt retainers from themselves. I kind of was a big believer of this is the future of work, right? It's not outsourcing and leasing developers. It's not just basic maintenance. It's not one-off hit and run jobs. It's build like consulting, focus on ROI, build relationships, long-term work, focus on retention, on growing, alongside your clients and all that. So we kind of went through that transition over the course of time, working with great clients, customers like Audi, 3 different banks, and some other businesses. Kind of adapting that retainer model, we had more and more demand for digital marketing. We started with inbound first. We became a HubSpot agency partner in 2006. So this kind of transition got us into MarTech, integrating marketing technology and dashboards. We pulled in data layer as well, big data, data warehouses, dashboards and stuff. So this has been plowing to high scale systems because we were building the underlying data layers, right? We were building P&L reports and tracking and what works, what doesn't, ad spend, revenue from ads, from sales, from e-commerce, from like different pieces, connecting sales tools. It was super exciting. And even over the past like 2 to 3 years, we've been positioning more as a go-to-market enablement / revenue operations partner for CROs, CMOs, CFOs, even working on the data layers and data systems and forecasts and projections and predictability, because that's essentially what the business boils down to, right? If you work on the wrong tech that's not measured correctly, you're going to lose. It's a lose-lose game. So we're pushing hard to work with the core decision makers, building that strategy based on best practices and everything we see in the business, and then downstream also working on the implementation layer with the in-house team.
I hear you. I hear you 100%. So at the moment in Devrix, what is the ratio of WordPress versus non-WordPress technologies which you're managing? Is it like 50-50? Is it a good mix?
I would say that WordPress as a core technology is still over 60%. That's what I can say. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a whole lot of other things. But what I'm saying is that there's almost always in over 80% of the time, there's almost always a WordPress backbone that is later on connected to Salesforce, to HubSpot, to
Oh
NetSuite.
yes.
We
Oh yeah.
have, BigQuery layers and, Cloudflare workers and then key value storages and AWS. So it's still like one of the core systems of our businesses that we work with is still WordPress, but it's also one of the 15 or 20 different systems that we integrate. And we manage 5 or 6 other systems alongside for our clients.
But I think when
And
it comes to SEO, WordPress is still the market leader. Would you say when it comes to SEO, search engine
well,
optimization?
that's definitely the case. And even when it comes, kind of one of the controversial topics is headless websites. So this
True.
is something that's been pretty trendy.
Discussed a lot.
We
Yes.
Yeah, we had several transformations back in 2020, 2021. We rebuilt, 2 or 3 websites back to headless, and we actually had to revert a couple years later.
Oh.
Uh, that was partially SEO, partially maintenance, partially other things, partially the fact that WordPress nowadays can be built fast enough so that it's not really a problem, especially with page level caching and kind of other tricks and kind of gimmicks so that you don't have to rebuild the core layer. But what we're seeing, especially with AI SEO, LLM SEO, or GE SEO, or whatever you want to call it, with that, we see that a bunch of scrapers cannot really interpret and render JavaScript accurately.
Mhm.
And getting a proper static HTML page generated from WordPress is performing extremely well. So yeah, that's definitely adding and contributing a lot to the equation.
So tell me in your words, where do you think WordPress is going in 5 years? Not two, not 10, just 5 years. Consider this: Framer, Wix is improving, Squarespace, Dora Run. There's so many lovable now. Everybody's just talking about lovable. What do you think about that? The future of
Well,
it.
it's funny you mentioned Globo, and first off, both of us are based in Europe, right? So I'm
Yes.
pretty proud that there's a vibe coding solution coming out of Europe. It's the
Mm.
fastest growing European startup, 8 months to 100 million
Yep.
ARR and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'm pretty
Yep.
proud with that. Like, just as a European accomplishment, that's pretty cool.
It is.
However, I'm not really convinced that Lovable stuff should be deployed in production. One of the startups that I invest in, a month ago, I got a downtime report, and I know they were running WordPress back then, and they said, "Hey, like you have a new website, what's going on?" I said, "Well, we are an AI company, we're built to Lovable." And I'm like, I'm not sure that was necessary. Like your previous design was GitHub-like, really well executed and stuff, but they decided to do Lovable because of reasons. And since then, because we have uptime systems monitoring a bunch of things, and even though the site had probably 2 minor outages for a minute over the course of the previous 6 months, they've had 4 different outages, one of them 28 minutes for the past week.
Mm.
And that's hosted on Lovable. So I'm keeping the uptime system up out of curiosity, which is kind of what I do with other websites too,
And
just to
AI.
see the different,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
to see the different issues that happen, outside, well, kind of different outages, database going down, 429 errors, some API callback issues, some deployment freezing, and so many other different things that you cannot really afford and you cannot allow to have in production. And to your original point of where's WordPress heading, I think that WordPress was really lagging behind over the past 3 years, just kind of frozen in time, not a lot of kind of evolution and competition. I'm not going to dive deep into the kind of PE drama rabbit hole. That's a
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we just
Another
don't need
story.
any more
Yeah.
of that drama. But I'm definitely seeing a resurrection, kind of a return to WordPress out of all of that that's been happening, like just collection of so many different people that are contributing back and giving back to the platform, especially with Copilots and the opportunity to just push more code and iterate through more iterations. It allows and kind of provides opportunities for both core WordPress teams and contributors and external systems to build wrappers. I see that the new release is also planning MCP kind of integrations and
Yeah, the
connectors
core is
for
becoming
WordPress.
stronger than ever before, and they're coming up with
Exactly.
releases faster than ever before. Plugin owners are getting approvals faster than ever before. So things are very
Definitely.
positive, very
The
positive.
the PHP AI SDK also being improved and integrated inside. I feel
True.
that in terms of a platform, is definitely in the right spot. I've also talking about the Squarespaces and framers and the other things. I don't like mixed feeling on whether WordPress is competitive for that in that specific phase. Like if you have a one-pager business brochure website, it's kind of a 50-50 mix. You can probably go with a framer or Wix or Squarespace. Probably doesn't matter because the business does not depend a lot on your website. It's just something that sits on a business card and like you need something to write at the bottom. And it's not really delivering a purpose. But when it comes to an actual system, a site with different custom post types, with purchase flows, with marketing pixels, and all sorts of other things. When the website actually delivers a purpose, then you have two options. Number one is a self-hosted proprietary third-party business like Webflow, Wix, Squarespace, and all the others. That's proprietary, holding over your data, probably a hard export path, potential issues with GDPR, with CCPA, with others, trickier to kind of integrate other systems, and lots of other kind of underwater challenges that you're facing, such as, hey, you can do multilingual where the added language is in a subfolder. You always have to go subdomain, which is not necessarily helpful, right? Or
True.
your 5 different websites, you need 5 different licenses. Even if you have Shopify, you actually have to pay for a different license,
True.
like
True.
different SaaS, instead of having a multi-site system. So
True.
a lot of these are walkers and obstacles in self-hosted systems versus WordPress giving the versatility and the ability to run that, especially in certain categories such as healthcare, education, government, and other well-regulated that they have and they need full control
Full
over
control.
ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, data privacy, hosting collocation, any other system that are running in between, GDPR compliance, like every single bit of data is being controlled and monitored because of regulations compliance, and you don't want someone else messing with your data.
100%. Every
Uh,
country has their own regulation. USA has HIPAA compliances. Europe has very, very
mm,
strong consent rules. You name it. So yes, you are right. And if you just go to the WordPress plugin repository, you will definitely find some solution, a free one,
mm,
a freemium version for sure, and a paid version like that. And people, you don't need
yeah.
to be a coder. Like I can't code shit. You have coding experience. So for company like ours at Seahawk Media, like, it just made sense. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. I don't think WordPress is going anywhere. And with this, if it continues to improve like this, it is only going to go up and up. It will become, in the grand scheme of things, I think it will do really, really well. I think so.
I remember before Vibe coding, there were Bubble and Frontly and some other no-code apps or low-code apps, right?
Okay.
This is pretty popular in 2021, 2022, especially before the kind of whole vibe
AI.
coding thing happened.
Yeah.
And I was, okay, why are you using third-party new builders and system kind of builders and systems that you have no control over the end code versus going with the original no-code or low-code platform, which is WordPress,
Hmm.
being able to do assembly of different tools and
True.
systems. And then, of course, whenever you have your pivot, whenever you have your product market fit or experimentation that's running, you just build it alongside or on top of that system properly, right? You run your pivot, you run your test within an infrastructure that you don't have to rebuild for an MVP. And since I mentioned that we were one of the first kind of vendors of SaaS in WordPress in 2013, this was the core value proposition. Businesses had, let's say, 50 grand to launch an MVP, a prototype, and they said, look, I can spend, again, 30 to 100 grand for a developer to build something, just a prototype, but this
Near
thing is
market
not
ready.
going to scale. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
near market ready, and it's not going to scale. So once I have that, if it works out, then I need to pay for a rebuild and an expensive migration versus getting to market with WordPress and then gradually rebuilding different layers or kind of extracting different layers, normalizing the database, whatever's needed within the core platform without the need for rebuilding.
Hmm.
And this is what we're seeing with the Lovables and the others
Yeah,
right now,
Lovable is
right?
a dream for people, those who want to demonstrate an MVP. It's a dream for those for sure. Definitely. I agree with you 100%.
What I'm seeing, and I'm seeing that with other even kind of agency founders in the kind of top 20 WordPress space, is we now see both engineers and also account managers and even project managers getting into kind of discovery session or prototyping sessions with clients and generating interfaces with V0 or kind of running just a dashboard prototype with Lovable or Bolt or Replit or something else. So there's nothing wrong in trying to picture something instead of drawing on a napkin or doing a wireframe with boring blocks that don't really mean anything and speeding up this side of the process. There's nothing wrong with that as long as there's enough sufficient understanding from the other side that this whole thing needs to be rebuilt from scratch and it's just for illustrative purposes to demonstrate what is possible.
That's true. That's true. I agree with you. Let's switch gears to your investments and your consulting firm as well. If you want to enlighten us about that. I saw because when I was doing research about you and preparing your introduction, I was like, okay, you have this, you have this, have this. So I was like, okay, I need to understand. So what is your? Let's start with the investment firm. How do you do that?
Well, absolutely. So again, I do have right now, it's a little over 20 angel investments, I think. I also have an investment in a small private equity, kind of a
Mhm.
holding company, and one other business that's investing in agencies. So it's kind of more or less distributed. The passion for investing was something that, of course, I'm deeply interested in myself, right? As a founder, serial founder, someone who's been in business long enough, I'm always happy to support other founders and passionate people who need not just a little extra capital, which is one side of the equation, but also support on the advisory board, and also connections and networking and additional opportunities that are way outside of the capital equation itself. Because let's face it, a lot of people can actually raise capital through just getting a loan from the bank, and it's good enough, and it's something that you repay, and you don't
Just
really give
that,
out
yeah,
equity.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's completely different to get your foot through the door with the right VC or acceleration partner and several strategic angel investors. So this is kind of the reason how I kind of started taking a pivot into that. So first started with traditional kind of stock market investing, and then started to poke into different deals. I became a partner for a European kind of crowd investing platform called Seedling.
Okay.
Invested in some deals there, then invested in the company itself, then became an ambassador and kind of co-organized some meetings for other startups that were looking for raising. So trying to support the ecosystem in different ways, doing
Got it.
this and also partnering with Flip on the M&A front. So trying to cover kind of all the different pieces, educational content, helping startups, do raising, M&A through Flippa, consulting from the agency or the other
So
businesses,
that's
kind
how
of
you
all of
led
that
to
is
the
interconnected.
one-to-one. You work one-to-one with these founders, obviously, to help them grow their businesses. It's not just about bringing in some capital, basically. You're very
Yeah.
involved with these businesses to
Yeah,
grow.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of an on-site go-to-market partner for some of them. We're going international, businesses that need a European presence or European businesses going to the States, and we tap them to our infrastructure and ecosystem to go there, and a lot of different things that are happening out there. So that's definitely something I'm passionate about. I'm trying to slow it down so that I, actually focus on that whole digital transformation, but it's something that I'm certainly passionate about. As for the consulting side, the core system, again, WordPress starting as a development firm and also digital marketing kind of B2B MarTech firm. This has been going on as a narrative for a while. So in the meantime, I was receiving lots of requests for working directly with me, and also, higher level strategy, including fractional roles, right? And I had to kind of segment that and said, okay, this is going to be a separate consulting practice that's going to run independently. It's going to be easier to manage outside of the Devrix P&L, running kind of a different team for operations, for tests, for R&D, running different scenarios that are kind of outside of the core brand and core system, which allowed me to move faster on certain initiatives in a market that was certain back then, right? In 2016 to 2022, everything was kind of moving more or less on autopilot, growth was steady, the services was steady, and my way to experiment was through that system, right? Running different pilots, working with partners, with other fractionals, diving into P&Ls, working with over 100 other businesses and kind of established companies on just the fractional advisory itself. And in
I
some of
see.
these cases, there was an overlap, right? Devrix clients needing a specific kind of time of mine, and then hiring me as a fractional for a few hours a month, or kind of consulting clients that need an implementation arm, and then bringing Devrix in. So there was some overlap, but over the past couple of years, we've been going through that go-to-market transformation within Devrix to say that, okay, let's focus both things and bring strategy as an official arm within Devrix, and also, use a couple other executives that we have in the company who are capable enough to do all that transformation, audits, and analysis, and also bring in additional people. We're just hiring a director of engineering from Redis. We are also hiring for a kind of ex-McKinsey within the B2B field. So bringing more of the consultancy arm to be able to shape all of that properly, and then implementation follows a structure that's been proven. One example that I can give right now is a meeting that I just had yesterday. It's a second meeting with a client that also needs landing pages and kind of help with campaigns and kind of go to market and kind of PPC, just strategy and kind of strategic initiatives into converting landing pages. So after a couple meetings of going with them, kind of what it turns out is they are trying to be a Robinhood competitor and some of the other trading businesses, but the founders are not public online, right? The first one isn't posting anything. Their last post is 3 or 4 months old on any platform whatsoever. The second one is not even on the LinkedIn page. They don't have any followers. They don't have like Instagram, thought leadership content or X content, which is very important for a Robinhood type of company. They're not on Reddit, which is also very important for future traders and everyone else. So they have zero branding. They don't have funding. They're throwing capital on ads and are complaining that the CPMs are too high. They either cannot close the right clients or they're closing freemium customers that are not getting a return on their investment. Like they're not signing through the paid flows and kind of generating revenue. So what I'm saying is that being able to work higher up the food chain is pretty easy to distinguish specific issues and compare with the top 5 competitors, where first off, tens of millions of VC capital has been poured in, but that's one thing. Second, there's any hard moat to make sure that this business is competitive. Third, they're asking for money and kind of investing capital or like some form of payment transactions. It's a very sensitive topic. It's really hard to distinguish. So people need to trust them hard, and that trust needs to be evolved in small circles and small communities. So they need to spend more on like again Reddit and themselves, their thought leadership, being in communities, hopping on podcasts, doing so
Whatever.
many other different things that are critical, right? And if we were detached from that equation and we just get okay, how much does it cost to sort out like ads and landing pages funnel with tracking and data for like 3 months, and we give a fee, what ends up is we get some money, the client's super unhappy that it isn't working out, and we come out of that picture with this crappy agency or business did nothing, they didn't contribute to the business, they were expected to perform, and yada yada. And what sits on the other side is I sit down with these two founders and I said, look, this is a cold shoulder type of thing, but you're lacking any brand whatsoever. You either need VC funding or you need to invest 6 months in being online 24/7, just building that brand, connections, relationships one by one with like popular accounts and influencers and running thought leadership content and whatnot. Or like, get a loan, do a mixing, get a couple of influencers, pay a couple of people who are thought leadership in the industry, go on a few events, like meet some people, get some success stories, use case studies or whatever it is, and then you kind of have a pivot so that some people can trust you for some of the stuff that you do. But otherwise, what you're doing right now is counterproductive, and you're throwing money, expecting that people are randomly going to trust a more or less brand new business in a very competitive
You can't
space.
grow like that. You can't grow like that. Impossible.
You can't. Like you literally have companies paying thousands of dollars per video in YouTube kind of influencer ads for like financial advisors and others, and hoping to just throw in 1,000 a month in Facebook ads and then get an ROI on that.
No, it has to be the whole
And
thing. It has to be the whole ecosystem. SEO needs to work, social media needs to go, X, LinkedIn, you name it, videos, everything has to
exactly.
go.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And
especially for a
this
new brand, because how will you demonstrate authenticity? The biggest problem and biggest challenge with new brands is how do you know that they're legit? How would you know that?
exactly.
LinkedIn is a big place, X.com is a big place, amongst other things. I think the founders being on videos is one of the most important thing, I guess. You and I are recording this video and it's going to go out, and I think it builds authenticity. I think it's because people, especially if they want to work with you, they want to see who the founders are, especially. So yeah, I'm with you. So tell me about your team. You mentioned you're hiring a couple of people. How big is your team? Are they all in Sofia, Bulgaria? Are they distributed in Bulgaria? Tell me about your team.
Yeah, sure. So we have it's 30 something people here in the office in Sofia. We started as a distributed company back in the old times, again, 2010, but that was back when we were 3 people, so it was easy to like just
Yeah,
not have to be in the same room at the time.
yeah.
But a long time ago, probably even a decade ago, we started kind of co-locating most of the people at the office and slowly moving in. We still have maybe 3 people or so that are remote, but let's say this is kind of grandfathered exceptions, people who have been with us for a decade or people who had to relocate for very specific reasons, taking care of family or something else that's like non-negotiable and like we're figuring a way out. But the reality is that in such a fast-moving industry and ecosystem, especially with what's been happening with with AI and kind
Yeah.
of the B2B transformation and VC funding withdrawal and moving to different things, we've been in brainstorming sessions and things and kind of whiteboarding interviews and those sort of stuff. Sometimes I'm in 12 meetings a day, right? And it doesn't have to be a 1 hour Zoom. It's just, hey, let's brainstorming for 5 to 8 minutes, right? What can we do here? What's your idea? What's your idea? Let's come up with a third alternative. Let's make it do. Then this, okay, I see you have a broker. What can we do? 5 minute pair programming. You do this. And you can do that remote. It's not
No,
as
I'm with
efficient
you.
if you're in a if
Yes,
you're in a
there are
fast moving
pros and
consumer industry.
cons. There are definitely pros and cons. Like when I went to India last week and I sat with my team, like at least partially my team, we accomplished more in 4 hours. We probably would have not accomplished in maybe 4 days. So yeah, there are pros and cons. The only thing is like access to talent, you're like restricted with a particular town in a city. So yes, you need, like you also mentioned, non-negotiable. Sometimes you just need talent, and wherever they
Mhm.
are, we have to work with them. So, there are pros and cons, but no doubt sitting together in a room brainstorming is far apart. That's why me and my co-founder Ryan, like we try to go to our visit our team in India as much as we can,
Hmm.
and even though they're distributed, or fly them out in one of the cities to make sure that we spend at least 2 days, 4 days, 7 days, whatever we can, and brainstorm, with our meetups. So yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you have, it's kind of different if you have multiple offices or if you have a hub in one city with four people that are working together. It's kind of, there are certain situations where this works, right? You kind of have micro hubs
True,
or
true.
so forth. Or like if you have pretty clear P&L assignment, or like you have let's say a full-time developer working on a project, like you sync
Yes.
in, you take a look at, project management system and KPI and red due dates and things like that. There are situations where that works. One of the roles that I'm not really pushing on that much, or at least before AI, was content writer, right? If you have a quota to do over the week, and if you don't have to work with the team internally to take interviews or take photos at the office, then it's a plausible role to have externally, or a link builder, right? You have a quota, you have a KPI, even
Yes.
kind of a sales code core. So there are specific, distinguishable individual contributor roles, or one person dedicated to one project working with a client that's not there. So in these cases, yes, it is possible. In our case, every single person works on 3 to 5 projects in parallel in 3 different teams with different responsibilities in-house,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
the
yeah.
level of collaboration is instant, and you just cannot replicate that online. That's it.
Got it, got it. And we're just coming up on time, so a couple of fun final questions. What kind of podcasts or Netflix shows do you like?
Podcasts and Netflix shows. Netflix shows, what me and my fiance are looking at is either the popular kind of top one, kind of whatever's now trendy, anything from the Queen or the Crown, whatever it's called, or the Squid Game, or anything like very
Oh yes.
various ranges. Yeah,
Yeah,
documentaries for kind of war heroes or athletes or musicians.
yeah.
And yeah, for podcasts, recently I've been looking into several RevOps podcasts. My First Million is one that I like a lot. The Alex Hormozy one is just something that's kind of quick motivation walking at the office. So like pretty
Yes.
various things that I pay attention to. But I listen a lot, like pretty much every single
And, and
day
what
to
and,
work
and
or
what
back work
is
or so.
and what is your favorite AI tool as of now? Except ChatGPT. Don't say ChatGPT.
I'm actually more of a Claude user, to be fair, so I'm kind of a hippie. But the favorite AI tool, probably Opus for trimming clips is kind of one of my favorites. Opus
Okay.
Clip, because like I get the shorts from like clips that I
I
get.
haven't used it, but
No,
now I'm curious about it. I'm curious about
oh,
it.
it's amazing. You'd love it for the podcast. Trust me,
All right.
you're going to love it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also, Notebook LM is one other that I can pour a lot of knowledge and actually have kind of a podcast type of conversation with Google on certain topics.
Got it. And are you visiting any events like WordCamp, Domain Days, something like that in this year, sometime early next year? Or
I
just
have
the recent
several.
past? Your
I,
favorite
I,
event?
I ha- yeah, I have a calendar packed of some on-site events here in Bulgaria because it's a pretty busy year. We actually had 17 different events earlier this year, which was quite crazy.
Wow. Okay.
We are, some of the teams organizing WordCamp Sofia here. They have several different meetings, traveling to the UK in 2 weeks, then in California mid-September, in Greece earlier in September. So there's some other travel with like different hubs, meeting clients or partners or so. So nothing like international event coming up right as of now, but definitely some coming up next year.
Got it. And what's Bulgaria's best kept secret as per you?
Best kept secret. It's banitsa. It's one of the foods that you need to. It's kind of a pastry, salty pastry food baked
Got it.
that you definitely need to try out. So
All right.
make sure that you try it once you come over.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and being on my show. This was a fun conversation, and I hope I can visit Bulgaria soon because I have a lot of friends now in Bulgaria, including you now, and now I know you as well. So,
I think it's since you told me about secret, I think it's the only country in the world that never changed its name or something. It's founded in 681st and never changed its name.
oh,
But yeah, it's
I didn't
you
know
can
that.
verify it with ChatGPT and see if that's true.
Anyways, thank you so much for being on my show, Mario. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best for this year. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a nice one.
Likewise, thanks for having me. Have a good one. Cheers.